Greetings, folks. This is Paul, sitting down and talking about our favorite subject, Course in Miracles. Asking a big question today. Why? Why is there death? Why do people suffer? Why is there sickness? Why do people see themselves as being victimized? Why is there suffering? Why is there unhappiness? Why are people experiencing guilt and fear? What is the purpose of it? Why does it even exist? What's going on? What are we using it for? There's some kind of deliberate, intentional purpose in the use of these things. They aren't just things. They aren't just that someone just happens to be sick, somebody just died for some reason, made up reasons. There's actually a bigger purpose. There's a big reason. There's a ego-driven use of all these things to attempt to achieve a certain goal, a secret plan, a kind of a ulterior motive for why we're willing to go through these things, to make them happen, to suffer from them, that we're actually willing to die for a reason, that there's a secret reason, there's a some benefit that you're gaining, there's a payoff, there's some reason, there's something in all of these things that you seem to gain from them, and therefore they aren't quite the victimized, helpless states that they seem to be. They're actually consented to and willingly chosen, because there's something that you're getting out of it that may not be at all obvious, but in the big picture there's a payoff for death. There's something that you get in return for dying, and is the reason why you would choose to die. Jesus gives a nice hint. Well, actually, it's the more that I look at this, the more this is all over the course, but here's a nice hint talking about what it is that you're getting in return for willingly suffering. Death seems an easy price if you can say, "Behold me, brother, at your hand I die." For sickness is the witness to his guilt, and death would prove his errors must be sins. And this doesn't quite get to the point of what the payoff is either, but it is telling you that death seems to be an easy price. Death is something that you're willing to pay, something that you're willing to experience and go through as a bargain, as a great deal, an easy price, in order for you to be granted or to achieve something that you think is much more valuable. What is that? What is it that you're actually trying to get out of suffering? What is it that you're trying to achieve when you believe you're being victimized? What is it that you are trying to accomplish when you're scapegoating? What are you trying to get out of death? What is it doing for you? What is the purpose of it? Why? Why are we doing this stuff when we don't have to? Why are we doing it on purpose? And for what purpose? And with purpose. Why is there a purpose at all? We're trying to get away with murder of God's Son and God. We're trying to find a way by which we can prove and testify that we actually have done these things and get away with it without having to pay anything, so that we can get off scot-free and regard ourselves as innocent. That we could be sinful against God, murderous against his sons, to cause suffering, and to then be able to position yourself in such a way that you come across as the most helpless, innocent victim who is so pure and holy and could never possibly have been the one who did any of these nasty things. That you could have a, what the Course calls the face of innocence, a facade, a fake appearance that you've completely disowned all responsibility for causing any of these things to happen, completely separated yourself off from them, scapegoated them onto someone else, blamed everyone except you for why these things are happening, and come off as the innocent party while secretly dissociating from your deep belief that you actually did do all these things, which you don't want to undo because you want to believe in sin and guilt and death. So it's like the whole ego thought system is all about denial, and it's all about disowning who and what you are and what you've done and what is true about you. So at every step of separation in the descent to hell, all the way from heaven to hell to death, there's always forms of denial, blocks to awareness. That you would first of all believe that you sinned and that you've attacked God and killed him, or you tried to kill his son. The world is made as a picture of crucifixion of God's Son, and then you actually deny that. You go into more denial, and you say, I didn't actually do that, while keeping the sin, keeping the belief in sin, and believing that you really did do it, and it's had real irreversible effects. You go into guilt, and in the guilt you pretend that you didn't mean it. You didn't really want to do it. You didn't, it was an accident. It wasn't on purpose. It wasn't premeditated murder. And now you're sorry, and now you're remorseful, and you wish you could take it back. So long as you don't actually take it back, so long as you don't undo the sin and you don't reverse the attack or the consequences. In the guilt, you get to portray yourself as the beginning steps of the development of a face of innocence, because now you come across as, oh, I'm horrified at what's happened, and this has happened to me, and I am feeling so bad about myself for what I did, and now I'm not worthy, and I shouldn't be loved, and poor me. And you start going into victimhood, and you start getting towards, it's like someone that committed a murder and who then tries to pretend that they are not the one who did it, and to even come up with a nice scapegoat, another person that you can pin it on and get that person convicted so that you are exonerated and nobody would suspect your secret sinfulness that you still believe in, and so you get away with it. This is the whole purpose. This is the answer to the why. Why do we do all this stuff? To get away with murder, to disown and continue to bury with denial, layers of denial, the deep-held belief that we actually did sin and we did commit a crime and it had real effects. We did murder God and his Son. And it goes on. Because once you get into guilt, you now actually repress the guilt. You disown the guilt, and you shovel the guilt off onto something else. And you now say, I'm not the one that's guilty. You create a face of innocence to cover up the guilt, which blocks your awareness of the guilt, and it becomes unconscious. And now you see yourself and you portray yourself as innocent, as a helpless, small, little, weak, frail, victimizable, attackable, defenseless body persona that can be attacked and hurt against its will, and hoping that it will, so that you'll get the opportunity to really pin the blame on someone. It's almost like laying a trap. The body's like a trap that you're sort of dangling. I hope somebody will attack this. I hope they're going to attack it soon. Somebody please come and attack this, because as soon as you do, I'm going to be able to say, look what you've done to me. And that positions me as, I've been unfairly treated. Look at this story about how unfairly treated I am. I now get to disguise. Body is a disguise. I get to disguise what I believe I've done, and deflect it and put all the attention on this other sinner who now can be the fall guy or the scapegoat for your situation. It's the more that you can set them up to be attacking you and victimizing you and hurting you and doing things against your will and threatening you and all this stuff, you actually become willing to take on that role of a victim and to suffer and to be hurt and to be made to be sick, because there's a payoff that so long as we can find that someone else is to blame, so long as somebody else is the guilty one or the sinful one, or in fact even the cause of your sickness, or in the extreme the cause of you dying, it's almost like the ego is clapping and celebrating behind the scenes, because it's like finally succeeding at the complete disowning and disguising of this crime. It's getting away with murder and having it be that cause and effect are separate, and therefore you caused something to happen and you escaped from all of the effects. You were able to kill another person or kill God and not have that affect you. That cause and effect, father and son, are separate, and therefore what you do to your brother you don't do to yourself, and it's a violation of the golden rule, and it's a total denial of the laws of God, and an attempt to say that we're totally unequal and whatever applies to you doesn't apply to me, and you've destroyed me and you're still alive. We're totally not the same. We're totally separate and unequal, different, and therefore what you've done to me I haven't done to you, and therefore I must be innocent. I'm the innocent victim here. How dare you be considered innocent? So, as this statement is saying, all states of victimhood, every kind of suffering, every way that you might see yourself as, and believing that I'm under attack, people are hurting me, people are judging me, they're not treating me right, they're making my body hurt, they're sinning against me, there's something in the environment that's causing me to be sick. A lightning strike came out of nowhere and zapped my body and now it's dead. In every one of the possible scenarios of how you might be attacked, you get the massive payoff to be able to now have something to pin the blame on other than yourself. And so now you get to get away with the underlying repressed sin and guilt in yourself, and it's like a way of getting away with the crime, basically. Like you believe you've done this to God, you've killed, been murderous, and then found a way to pin it on anything other than you, and to position yourself. The sick thing is that we're actually willing to undergo and put into place on purpose, deliberately, forms of suffering, unhappiness, physical sickness, terrible ailments, intolerable pain, awful experiences of things going wrong, situations in life that are screwed up and backwards and totally unfair, all kinds of ways that we're actually deliberately willing to endure these attacks, because we know that we're going to get something out of it, that we're actually getting more out of it than we're losing. Let's revisit this quotation one more time. Death seems an easy price if you can say, "Behold me, brother, at your hand I die." For sickness is the witness to his guilt, and death would prove that his errors must be sins. If you can find a way to prove that your brother is really a sinner, whereby you can sort of say, "Because of you I died, at your hand I die, you come along and you've attacked me with whatever, and my body dies," it proves his errors must be sins. He is now confirmed in your death to be the sinner, the real sinner that has produced real death. Here's your body that's dead to prove it. It witnesses to his sinfulness and guilt. Its damage and its sickness is a witness that testifies. Here's the physical evidence to show that you did this to me. And by doing so, I get to be the one who was unfairly treated, attacked against my will, victimized without asking for it, unjustly attacked and condemned and murdered. And in that fact, I am pictured as the innocent victim, the innocent party, the one who suffered, the one who was made to die against his will. And therefore, because of that, all of the sin and all of the guilt is now firmly and squarely in the hands of somebody else and not me. So now I've managed to find a way in death to disown the sinful crime that I believe I did commit, and to therefore position myself as exonerated of sin, found to be innocent, that the dead are innocent. Which is a way for the ego to say innocence is dead. It's another part of the whole opposition to the kingdom of God. It's the attempt to destroy innocence. If I really am innocent by being killed against my will, then innocence has died. The Son of God, who is innocent, has died. Now this is another big piece of this. The entire purpose of the body and the whole purpose of every kind of suffering and sickness and death, all pain, is designed to bind the Son of God to the body, to produce a bodily identification, to think this body is who and what I am, to confuse myself, my spiritual self, with it, to convince everybody else that this body is me, and then to arrange for this body to be under attack, to try to prove that I am under attack, that as an immortal spirit, you are immortal and you cannot die, but you can confuse yourself with things that do, that you could be attackable and victimizable and hurtable. You can be damaged, you can become sick, you could even be killed. And the more that the body is made to suffer, and the more pain it has, and the more the pain screams to not be avoided, that the body's damages and its sicknesses become so debilitating and disabling and intolerable that you can't even sleep because you're in such turmoil. You can't even get around without excruciating agony. For a reason, in order to more closely put all of your focus and all of your attention on the body, to have you not overlook anything. This is the rejection of forgiveness. This is an unforgiving state in which you're trying to suffer so that you can become identified with the body more, so that you can confuse yourself with things that seem to be attackable, so that you can set up the situation where an attackable thing can potentially become attacked, and in so doing, if the body were to die, and if the Son of God had been bound to the body through this shutting out of mind and spirit, and this complete failure to forgive, this failure to overlook form, that as the body dies, the Son of God is going down, is anchored to it, and is going down with it. And in the death of the physical body, the ego uses the physical body as a way to try to prove that the Son of God is not immortal. The Son of God can be killed. The Son of God can be attacked and destroyed and turned into worm food. So that's another whole piece of this. It's not just that your ego is trying to portray itself as innocent, which it is. It's also trying to, the death of the body is symbolically a way to try to produce evidence that the Son of God has died. A person has died. And the death is real, and there should be a funeral. The complete absence of resurrection, the total shutting out of life, the complete rejection of healing of any kind, the complete absence of all forgiveness, absolute accusation and condemnation, extreme projection and scapegoating, to the extent that as the body is dying and dead, it becomes kind of an irrefutable proof that your brother is the cause of this, the world is the cause of this, and I didn't make this happen, I didn't consent to it whatsoever. Didn't ask for this, it's unfair, I've been unfairly killed. That's not very nice. So physical death is just the end of a whole sequence of ways in which we're trying to destroy ourselves at the same time as trying to blame it on someone else. And so as your body becomes damaged and sick and dead, it simultaneously, more successfully, through cause and effect reversal, accuses your brother of being the cause of it. Because what happens is you're the cause of things and your body's an effect. In false perception, you reverse cause and effect and you see yourself as at the effect. You take all the causality and you put it outside yourself. You pin it on somebody else and you say, you're the cause of me. And then the effects seem to now provide evidence that he's the cause of you, and here's something to prove that you're doing this. And we're actually willing and able, quite successfully, to invent physical damage in the body, physical symptoms, suffering, and various upsets on purpose, out of nowhere, to try to make it look as though your brother really did put this there. So as you disown yourself, you disown causality, you're disowning the sin, you're displacing it outside, finding a scapegoat, finding somebody to pin it on. We actually go into this victiminess. We go into this, I want to be suffering. I want to be sick. I want to be dead. Suicidal. Choosing to see yourself in the role and the position of victim, completely separate from the role of victimizer, so that no one will suspect that you are the one victimizing yourself. Secret of salvation, you're doing it to yourself. It doesn't matter whether it looks like someone else is attacking you or not. Always this is true, you're always doing it to yourself, but you split off a big chunk of your mind that you've decided is sinful, and you've disowned it, and you're trying to push it out and away from the rest of you, and you map it on top of other people, and now it seems quite easy to say, I'm not that, that's not part of me, that must not be part of myself, it must be part of somebody else's self. And so now it's very easy to attach it to people and blame them for it, even though it's still inside your mind and it's still part of you. So then we get really good at, or what we have become really good at, portraying ourselves as victims who are not doing anything to victimize. Somebody who isn't secretly trying to get away with murder, somebody who isn't secretly getting a payoff and a benefit from being victimy, that I'm just being victimized and I don't want this at all, and I didn't ask for any of this and it's happening against my will, I'm not trying to do this, I'm not making this happen, this is all unasked for. To try, that's all part of the disguise of trying to hide the ulterior motive, the secret payoff for that you're willing to do this in order to accomplish something. It's not just a random unfair treatment that you're experiencing. You're actually actively doing something for a reason, on purpose, to get something out of this role of being a victim. You're actually benefiting from it, and you're therefore willing to be a victim in order to assuage your guilt and be considered exonerated and pardoned for your sin. If you look at that, that's quite insane. This is how the ego is so backwards and ridiculous that you're you will become more innocent the more you suffer. The more that you have things happen to you that you don't want, the more you'll get what you want. The more that you're sick and suffering and dying and identified with the body and making the body suffer, the more you will be set free and escape from God's wrath. The more suffering you experience, the more holy you are. This is what the ego believes. The more that you are seeing yourself as being victimized, and they're the ones who's wrong, and it's not me, and I'm not doing anything, the more denial there is, the more you're getting what you really want. And you'll notice that in victimhood, it's all about this whole surface experience of, I don't want this. I don't want this to be happening. Why is it happening? Why are they doing this to me? Why did they single me out? And why am I the one that has to suffer? I didn't ask for this. I'm not having anything to do with it. I'm not causing it. I didn't choose it. I didn't ask for it. I didn't want it. It's happening to me unfairly. In order to cover up this huge benefit of, if I will go along with this and I will suffer and I will comply and I will give my permission and my consent to suffer and to play a role of being victimized by this person and allow them to victimize me and ask them to do so and make a contract with them to say, please come and attack me. I want to be attacked. Is anybody fancy an attack? I'd like to be attacked, please. So that it is insane, but this is what we do, so that you can get away with having a wonderful opportunity to point a finger anywhere other than yourself, to turn that finger around and say, you are the ones who killed God, aren't you? You're the ones that sinned. You've sinned against me. I bet you sinned against God just the same way. You're the ones that have attacked me and made me dead. It must be your fault. I bet you're so sinful that I bet you're the ones that even killed God, aren't you? It wasn't me. You're worse than I am. And you're actually even willing to go into tremendous suffering and being physically abused and physically damaged and in pain and poisoned and sick or whatever, just so that you can find the other person to be guilty. And that makes you wonder, because you've got people in roles of such victimhood in this world, and this is going to be controversial, so get your freaking shields up. This is very controversial in the world, because the world does not want to know that victims are victimizers and that they're choosing it and that they want to suffer and that they're getting a huge payoff. This is not at all popular, because the illusion, or the surface appearance, is always very strongly crafted to pull off this stunt and make it look like every one of these victims is pure and innocent and has not in any way asked for this and isn't getting anything out of it. It's always how it's made to look on the surface. So that it's a disguise. It's the face of innocence. It's fake innocence designed to distract you and deceive you so that you don't look at and recognize the ways that these victims are deliberately choosing and wanting to suffer and die and making it happen and inviting it to happen. That you can have somebody who, let's say that you have a woman who is in an abusive marriage and her husband's a total asshole and he's hitting her and threatening her and keeping her imprisoned, all this kind of stuff. There must be a part of her mind that wants this. Doesn't matter how radical or offensive that sounds, we have to get really honest. There must be a part of her that is getting a payoff. The more that she can suffer, the more she can find him guilty, even if he kills her. This is why this is so radical. This is why this is not necessarily going to be popular. The more that she can go along with being abused and putting up with it and believing that it's love and not leaving, or even creating scenarios where she can't leave, the more she gets a payoff of coming across as the innocent victim. And he gets to be the victimizer who is not in any way being victimy. And she's actually attacking him through this, so he's being victimized. And even if she were to die at his hand, she would get the payoff that Jesus is telling us people get from death. She would be able to say, "Brother, at your hand I die. Because of you, I've died. Not because of me. I didn't in any way do anything wrong. I didn't in any way choose this. I didn't want it. I didn't elect to have it happen. I didn't consent to it. And therefore, you're the guilty motherfucker. You get to be the sinner, and I can be the innocent one who has now gotten away with murder by getting murdered." That's what it boils down to at the extreme. We're willing to be murdered so that we can get away with murder. Because if we were to let ourselves be killed, we would be able to pin all the blame for murderousness on somebody else and completely cover up our own murderousness. That we're literally willing to die in order to come across as the one who did not be murderous. Death seems an easy price. Look, we're even freaking thinking this is a great bargain, like we're somehow getting much more in return with this innocence than we're having to give up in our suffering. And your sickness is the witness to his guilt, and your death would prove that his errors must be sins. So even though, in the ridiculous insanity of this, if you were the one getting murdered, you would now be dead. At least the payoff is your dead body testifies that your brother is a sinner. This taps into another whole thing in the Course that is often resisted, and I get a lot of pushback about, which is your death is a way to accuse everyone else of being sinful. If you make your body damaged and go towards death, and now you're holding a picture of crucifixion in front of your brother's eyes, and you're dangling it in front of his face and saying, "Look at this nice dead body. This is what you've done. Are you happy now? You're the cause of this death. And I didn't do this myself. I didn't do any of this. My mind didn't have the power to put this sickness in my body. I didn't make this damage happen. I wasn't the one who refused to perform miracles of healing so that I could get away with making sure that you're not exonerated." Because we're actually, in our natural ability, we actually have miraculous ability to heal the body, to reverse sickness and death, to remove it of all forms of attack. Every sign and symptom of sickness can be undone physically. Now is the body healed by miracles. The mind is stronger than the body. Every miracle demonstrates this. But if we withhold this miraculous loving healing, it is on purpose so that we don't heal the body, so that we can keep the accusations, sick bodies remain accusers, so that the sick body is now testifying to your brother's sins. And in its death, it proves he is a guilty motherfucker and you are pure and innocent. And only in you consent to die only so that you can accomplish this. You cannot die unless you choose to do so. You cannot be hurt unless you hurt yourself. That you'd actually sort of say, even though I'm not going to come out the other end of this, I'm going to have to die, at least in my death I will be let off the hook and somebody else will be the sinner. And that's the sort of the bargain that you've made with the ego, being willing to cause and accept death so that you can exonerate yourself of the sin that you believe you did commit. It's pretty crazy, it's pretty backwards, it's not necessarily obvious, and there are many, many horrendous, horrible, awful seeming things that happen in the world. You know, you've got pedophiles abusing children and making them do stuff they don't want to do. You've got people getting murdered. You've got bullies attacking people. You've got, you know, countries that invade other countries against their will. You've got all kinds of absolutely ridiculous forms of victimhood. But it's all designed and set up by the ego so that you will feel sorry for the victims and not the victimizers. That you'll buy into the surface appearance of these illusions, and you'll think every victim is only a victim and not a victimizer. Every victimizer is only a victimizer and not a victim. That you'll not in any way feel sorry for the victimizer. That you'll think that evil people do not deserve forgiveness and innocent people are so special and holy and sacred that they could never do anything wrong. That is totally ego. It is blindness. There is no spiritual awareness in that outlook. It is being completely blinded by sight of form. It's falling for the trap. It is buying into the entire bullshit of the world to be convinced of these things. And the deception is very deep and strong and widespread. So you've got all kinds of causes and things that people do to rescue each other and fix people and to try to save the innocent victims in all kinds of ways, all kinds of scenarios, and it's all a setup. There's a deeper purpose to all of it. There's a why, there's a reason, there's a bargain that has been made in every case. And a person who is immortal and recognizes and claims their immortality would not ever do this. They would not play this game. They would never see themselves as attackable, never see themselves as victims, never see themselves as being able to be hurt against their will. So they wouldn't even manufacture scenarios where such things happen, where it's even possible. You wouldn't even portray yourself as victimizable. You wouldn't even play the role of poor me, or I'm being unfairly treated, people don't like me, people don't get me, people are abusive to me, people are pointing fingers and judging me. You wouldn't even play along with this game if you were sane. If you knew of your true innocence and you hadn't previously accused yourself of sin, and you hadn't bought into the bullshit idea that you can even kill God in the first place, or the total denial that the Son of God is immortal and he can never be a body, yet alone be killed along with the body, you would realize that it's absolutely pointless and ridiculous to even get into this whole dynamic of ego bullshit in the first place. You simply would not act like a victim. You would not look at yourself as though you're being under attack by others. You would therefore not have a reason or a need to produce sickness and damage and death or any kind of suffering, because you didn't have the ambition of needing to find a nice scapegoat to pin your sin on. If you hadn't originally believed that you were a sinner, you would not need a scapegoat. You wouldn't need to go into guilt. You wouldn't need to go into fear. You wouldn't need to manufacture a face of innocence. You wouldn't need to position yourself as a helpless, weak victim. You wouldn't need to create scenarios in which you're under attack and being punished for what you did, so that you can accuse the punisher of being the sinner and not you. If you were in your right mind, if you were sane, you would not go into the entire victim mentality whatsoever, because the victim mentality is not a state of only being victimized. It's a split-minded state in which you are both being victimized and victimizing simultaneously. And both of the roles are being played by you. You're playing it against yourself within your mind and believing that it's taking place between you and other separate people, when in fact it's all you attacking yourself. This is the secret of salvation. You're doing it to yourself. You are pretending to be a victim, pretending that you can be a victimizer, victimizing your own self inside your mind by seeing yourself in these roles of under attack and threatened and hurt and all this stuff. You are therefore attacked only by your thoughts, or attacked only because you believe and you're under attack, and you see yourself as under attack by yourself. Except that in that split-mindedness, you have so much disassociation that you think all of the attacker is not you. All of the victimizing is not you. And so you think other people are the ones that are doing it, and they are the sinners. So if you get away with all this and you produce death, and you are accusing your brother of causing it, it still is your mind killing itself, trying to kill itself, and accusing itself of sin. That your mind is still the attacker, your mind is still doing it to itself, and in the death of the body, you are destroying yourself. And at the same time as you destroying yourself, you're experiencing a state of being victimized and not wanting to die. So we actually play both roles, and playing either of the roles entails playing both of the roles. You cannot do one without the other. So every victim is a victimizer, and every victimizer is a victim, and they are both victims and victimizers. Nobody's getting away with anything there. It's a total loss on all sides. They're all guilty. So this is why we have to own up to what we're doing to ourselves, and ask yourself, why am I being a victim here? What am I trying to get away with by being pissed at somebody for what they're doing, pointing a finger? Why am I doing this? Why am I playing this game of trying to find somebody else to be the guilty one so that I can get away with what I believe I'm guilty of? Why am I trying to find a sinner to pin it on so that I don't have to be the sinful one? Why do I need somebody else to be targeted so that I won't be targeted? This is the deeper hidden motivation behind all of this stuff, behind every form of suffering, every trace of unhappiness, every slight cringe of fear, every little bit of guilt, any way at all that you're anything less than immortal, and you're into this whole dynamic of, I believe in sin, I believe I'm a sinner, I believe everybody else is a sinner, I'm going to try to disown myself, I'm going to try to pretend that I didn't do it, and I'm going to try to get somebody else to take the fall for me. And I'm even willing to undergo horrendous suffering, complete with complaints about why I don't want this and why it's awful and why I didn't choose it and why me, and all the pity of the unfairness of why you had to have this disgusting disease or whatever, so that you can continue with this scapegoating. So a thing you got to realize is that the physical body is part of the scapegoating mechanism. The physical body is part of projection. And as you attempt to project your sin, remember, you but accuse your brother of your own sins. As you accuse your brother of your own sins, your body becomes the tool that you use to accuse him and to provide evidence that he's done something, attacking it and making it sick and showing it to him as a picture of crucifixion, ultimately a picture of a dead body, a crucified body, in order to accuse him. The body is intimately tied into this use of the body for attack. And this is the only way by which the body gets sick. It is the only cause of death. You cannot die unless you choose to do so. No one dies without their own consent. You cannot be hurt unless you hurt yourself. I can be attacked by nothing but my thoughts. There is no power in nothing in the world with the power to bring oppression or to make me ill or weak or frail. My mind is responsible for the condition of the body. My mind is using the body either to portray myself as a victim or to portray myself as a representative of holiness and innocence and health and healing and love. If I use the body, if I'm scapegoating, while having a body, I am using the body to scapegoat, and the body will comply by becoming a device that I use to communicate to my brother, look at this, you did it. Brother, at your hand I die. It's that you put the damage and the physical effects into your body, and so that you will have some fake evidence that you can hold up to him and say, look at what you did. I'm gonna blame you for this. And that we're willing. This is why it's sick and suicidal and insane that we're literally willing to deliberately suffer and be unhappy and be sick and have to tolerate all kinds of pain and horrible things, and even to die, if it means we can get away with pinning it on somebody else, and therefore be exonerated of sin and be found innocent, because as everybody knows, every person that dies is innocent. every single person that died was so unfairly destroyed, weren't they? Every one of them, every single one. It was an accident. It was a car crash. It was a disease that they didn't ask for. It was they were in a war zone. A plane crashed into the building. Whatever the setup is, it is all bullshit. There is not a single cause of death other than the mind. You cannot die unless you choose to do so. No one dies without their own consent. You give the consent in that victim role. You're saying, I want to be attacked. I'm seeing myself as attacked. I believe I am attackable. Come and get me. I want to be dead. Anybody volunteer? Because if they do, you get away with it. And now you are portrayed as the innocent party, the victim who was hurt against their will. They didn't choose it. It creates an extraordinary illusion that is very deceptive, that the whole world has fallen for, that it always looks like the person that died did not cause it to happen. The person that died was unfairly killed, was against their will. They didn't want it. Because in part you don't want it, and that comes across as well, but there's also a part of you that does. So we're very good, we're very accomplished at making it seem as creating situations and making situations happen so that it seems like we are not having anything to do with making these things happen. So that it's like a perfectly set up trap. It's like a being framed that you would make stuff happen with your mind just so that you can get away with this. And if you think that that's not true, it is in the Course. This is the secret of salvation, that it doesn't matter what it looks like. It doesn't matter how much it seems convincing that you didn't choose it. You're still doing it to yourself on purpose so that you can say, brother, at your hand I die. Let's see if I can find it. Secret of salvation. I believe it's near the end. The secret of salvation is this: you're doing it to yourself, no matter what the form of the attack. This is still true. Whoever takes the role of enemy and attacker, still is this the truth. Whatever seems to be the cause of any pain and suffering that you feel, this is still true. Secret of salvation is this: that you are doing this unto yourself. No matter what the form of the attack, this is still true. No matter whoever takes the role of enemy and attacker, this is still true. Whatever seems to be the cause of any pain and suffering, physical sickness, damage, disease, death, still this is true, that you're doing this to yourself. You deliberately make yourself sick and make yourself suffer and make yourself dead, or try to make it look like you're dead by accusing the body of being yourself. You do it so that somebody else can be blamed for causing it. And it's because of the appearance that someone else or something else is causing it that you don't think you're the one that's doing it. You're deceived by it. You're convinced, okay, the car came along and the car crashed into me and it killed me. Where in that scenario does it seem as though I'd made that happen? But Jesus is saying, no exceptions. You are doing this to yourself, no matter the form of the attack, no matter who takes the role of enemy and attacker, no matter the cause of the pain or the suffering. This is still true. Somehow your mind is involved in consenting to death, whether it's to do with that you have the power of mind to make cars come along and crash into you, that you orchestrate life events with the Holy Spirit for this to happen for some reason, or you unconsciously position yourself in a certain place knowing that the car's going to be coming by, and you sort of go into a moment of unawareness and you sort of unconsciously throw yourself in front of the vehicle, or whatever it is that makes it happen, it is coming from you, chosen deliberately for a reason, for the purpose. Nothing happens without an intention. Nothing happens without a purpose and a reason. Every kind of sickness is deliberately put in place as a defense against the truth to serve the purpose of keeping the truth away from you. And you make the body sick just so that you will have a defense against life. And the entire reason that the sickness stays is because you have a purpose for it and you have a use for it. You need it, and it's doing something for you. It is defending you against the truth. And so long as you believe that you need to have this defense, you will keep the sickness going. Because you see, I have a use for this. It's all to do with what you use it for. Nothing happens in this world unintentionally. Everything is chosen. This is stated in my selfish rule of the universe. Nothing happens against my will. Whatever happens, I've chosen. Whatever does not happen, I do not want to happen. Deliberateness, choice, intentional purposes, reasons why, needs are the cause of everything that occurs in this world. If it's happening, somebody wanted it to happen. If the world is even here, somebody is putting it there on purpose for a reason. Sickness is not unfair. There's a reason for it. There's a purpose behind it. Death is not unasked for. There's a purpose for it. There's a reason behind it. People are wanting to die for a reason. Behind every form of suffering, every kind of victimhood, every way that you're unhappy, every kind of physical ailment, every disease, every form of attack, every accidents don't exist. There are no accidents in salvation. In every way, someone somewhere is saying, I need this for this reason. I want this and I choose this for this purpose. Even death has the purpose given to it that it is going to accomplish something for you, give you a payoff, and allow you to get away with something. You're getting something out of every one of these situations. There is always some way that you believe you are receiving as you're giving, or that you are going to get something in return for the suffering that you are enduring, that you make look as though you didn't choose and put it there and you don't have the power to remove it. You who made sickness and death therefore can abolish it. But you won't abolish it if you still have a purpose for it, if you still believe I still need to get a scapegoat, I still need somebody else to take the fall for me, you will still consent to die. All rooted in the belief that you sinned, and therefore because you sinned, you need a scapegoat. You need sickness. You need death. Only when you go to the atonement and recognize in forgiveness that there is no sin, you did not sin. If you did not sin, there is no need to die. There's no use of the body to produce sickness and death. If you're innocent, you do not deserve punishment. If you're innocent, you don't need to suffer. You don't see that there's any reason to. There's no purpose. There's nothing that you can gain by doing so. So you don't make it happen. You don't make death happen because you don't see a reason why you should die. You don't cause your own death to happen because you recognize that would be pointless. It's a purposeless, meaningless exercise because you don't need it. And so in accepting atonement, you are getting to where you are free from death in the resurrection because you are choosing never again to die. You're choosing to recognize your innocence and therefore not to believe in sin, and therefore insanity, you would know it would be really ridiculous to try to accuse my brothers of making myself suffer. It would be ridiculous to make myself suffer on purpose under the belief that it's going to be a good thing for me. That it is literally insane to believe that I should make myself dead because it's going to do something for me. That I should make myself die, make the body die, confuse myself with the body and make it dead just so that it can seem as if I didn't sin. If you didn't sin and you recognize that you didn't sin, you don't need death. You don't need to use this mechanism, this scapegoating, this victimhood. It's recognized as completely ridiculous that no one in their right mind would choose to die on purpose. Which is why a guiltless mind cannot suffer. The mind, being sane, heals the body. Because a sane mind has no use for sickness. It doesn't need this weird weapon that makes out that other people are sinful because of the suffering. A sane person, Jesus talks about a sane mind and a sane body. A sane person does not cause sickness. They only heal. And therefore they do not go into this whole mechanism of I'm going to make myself suffer and sick so that I can get away with murder. They don't do it. So they do not make the body sick. They do not make the body die. And the body cannot become sick or dead for any other reason, because there is no other reason for death and sickness. The whole purpose of death is to try to prove that the Son of God can be killed and that you are not the one who sinned even though you are. So if you know that you're not the sinner, you will not pursue this device of accusation. Sick bodies are accusers. You will not make the body sick. And by not making it sick, you must be healing the body. And using the body, instead of a picture of crucifixion, you use it as a picture of immortality, a symbol of eternal life in the world free from pain, free from sickness, free from damage. That even if your brother comes along and he tries to attack your body, you say, sorry, I'm not taking any more offers of attack anymore. I'm not volunteering to position myself as attackable. I don't choose to suffer. I will not be sick. I will not be hurt. I will not pretend that in being hurt, I'm not the one hurting myself. I will not pretend that in being hurt, you are a guilty motherfucker. We're not going to play this game. Sorry, you've come to the wrong person. If you attack my body and try to destroy it, I will resurrect it against your will, and I will prove that you are not a sinner. I'll prove that I am not accusing you. I'll prove that I don't need a scapegoat. And I'll prove that I believe in our innocence. And through brother, at your hand I live, is what you must demonstrate physically to your brother in order for him to be forgiven and in order for the body not to be used for the purpose of death and sickness. This is all why the body has to be physically healed as well as part of your atonement. Otherwise, you literally are using it for this whole bullshit dynamic of accusation, scapegoating, blaming, trying to produce proof of sin, evidence of attack, keeping the effects and consequences of attack to prove that sin happened so that your brother can be accused of murderousness, having your body become sick so that you can point a finger and accuse him of sin against you. You wouldn't do any of this stuff. So Jesus would not allow this, which is why in his resurrection he demonstrated power over death, such that, okay, you guys come along and you crucify the body, try to make it into a picture of accusation, try to use it to prove your sinfulness, so that by Jesus' attacked body, the attackers are condemned to death because they're sinful. And then for Jesus to turn around and say, no, I will not allow you to use my body to demonstrate your guilt. Through miracles, I will heal the body and show you only a picture of your innocence that symbolizes and represents your innocent nature, free from crucifixion, free from attack, free from signs of damage and sickness, free from death, to resurrect and show a picture, the opposite of a picture of crucifixion, a picture of life, a picture of health, that testifies with a power greater than 1,000 tongues, you have not hurt me, so you must still be innocent. To teach him of his innocence through your resurrected body image, so that instead of using the body to accuse him of sin, you're using the body to accuse him of innocence. And this is Jesus. As you get towards the resurrection, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to use miracles to heal the body. You're not supposed to show your brother what you hold against him. You're not supposed to show him sickness and damage, because that accuses him of sin and it teaches him that he's a sinner. You're not supposed to position yourself as a victim. You're not supposed to see yourself as having been victimized. You're not supposed to keep or allow any effects of sin or attack or any damage in the body, because if you do, you are consenting to it in order to have a scapegoat. And so the body must be healed as part of your awakening process, Even if eventually you leave the body behind, only the mind and body need atonement. The physical resurrection of the body restores it to health, restores it to sanity, and it now represents Christ in the world. It now, nothing that the body does but makes Christ manifest. The Holy Spirit lays a picture of a different you. It's a picture of a body still, but this one has never suffered pain. Show this to your brother. Teach him of his innocence. Give him testimony of why he did not sin through your physical demonstration. This is what he's asking us to do in resurrection, to overcome death by only broadcasting life. Resurrection is the assertion of life and the end of death, where so much life is coming out of you that nothing can hurt you. You cannot be killed. You cannot die. You can reverse death. You completely cancel it. You override it. You do not show it. You do not use it. You do not display it. You do not communicate it. You do not provide evidence that it exists. You only show a picture of life, and then you go home to heaven where you don't need the body because you've become resurrected through miracles. And this is only possible with supernatural miracles. This is why you need supernatural miracles, to undo the damage, to reverse the death, to remove the sickness that you put there. This is what miracles are for, the healing of your mind that results in the healing of the body. Now is the body healed by miracles. That's why you need the miracles, because they are the devices that have the life-giving properties to be able to resurrect. Miracles raise the dead. Every single one of them is a resurrection device that increases the life and raises the communication and supplies a lack of love and gives life. Miracles mean life. God is the giver of life. As you give miracles, as you display miracles and use miracles, death is overcome and everything comes to life. Remember, miracles fall like drops of healing rain on the dry and dusty land where starved and thirsty creatures come to die, and all around the signs of life spring up. This is why we need to become miracle workers, because by being able to perform miracles, we are able to raise the dead. We're able to be raised from the dead, from our dead state of trying to be victims that suffer, back to being immortal beings. And we demonstrate it by making the body a reflection of our immortality. When you are in your right mind and you're in touch with your immortality and in the atonement, you will no longer choose to make death happen or to accuse yourself of sin or to have a purpose for dying or a reason to die, and will never again choose to die. This is why Jesus says, "Swear not to die, you holy Son of God." You get to that point, as Jesus did, where he overcame death because he stopped killing himself. And he had power over death the whole time, as we all do. Death was always consent. And he simply decided, I no longer have a need or a reason to consent to death. I no longer will choose to make it happen. I will not make death happen. I will no longer attack. I will no longer be hurtful. I will no longer have guilt and sin. There will no longer be death. And therefore I will accept my eternal life and live forever. You are immortal and you cannot die. But you can confuse yourself with things that do. When you no longer have a purpose, a reason for, a need for, a use for suffering of any kind, you will drop it like a hot potato and instantly be healed. When you no longer have a purpose and a reason and a use for sickness, it will disappear. It is being used as a defense on purpose, as a way to try to protect yourself from life, because you think that God is your attacker. As soon as we get to the point where you no longer have a use for it, you recognize it no longer has a reason to be there. You no longer want to use it. You no longer support it. You don't need it anymore. You will let it go, and it will go, and leave no trace behind. It is only maintained by your need for it to stay. If you weren't holding on to suffering and keeping it going for a reason, it would just dissipate and vanish. So if you're suffering, you have made a wrong decision, you're not at peace, you made the decision yourself, you must have wanted not to be at peace, but you can change your mind. If you're sick, you must have made a wrong decision because you're sick. You wanted to be sick and you made the decision yourself, but you can change your mind. This is why Jesus always asks about, what is it for? What is the purpose of this? Why? Why am I doing this to myself? What am I using this for? What am I getting out of it? How is it benefiting me? Why did I do this in the first place? Why did I put it there? Why did I choose it? Why would I want this? And as soon as you change your mind and you no longer actually want it and you're not just pretending, your mind will just drop it. And then it's bye-bye death. Death will die and only life will remain. Maybe that's a good point to stop. This is getting kind of long again, so hope this is kind of helpful in some way. It's certainly eye-opening to look at the ways that we're victimizing ourselves and using it and bullshitting ourselves to believe that we're not doing it on purpose and that we don't want it and we don't have any choice in it, we don't have any power to choose differently, we can't stop it because it's somebody else is making it happen. All this crap. It takes a lot of honesty to look at all of the dynamics of why this is happening and who's doing it really, who is really responsible, why are you scapegoating and making yourself suffer. Basically, Jesus is saying, if you just would stop making yourself suffer, you would be happy. If you'd stop making yourself sick and dead, you would never die. You cannot be hurt unless you hurt yourself. If you would just get in touch with why you're doing this and stop doing it, it's game over for the ego, for death. Heaven is a choice I must make. Talk to you again soon. God bless and bye for now.